Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spin Zone, and these are the Serie A picks. So, going through Serie A in Italy, um, obviously with Paul Pogba being released by Juve, he's going to be a free agent. There's only going to be a couple games I'll highlight, but I'll make pick'ems for all of them, of course. So, first game is Elos Verona versus Inter Milan. Now, Inter Milan are fourth. Now, if you've been paying attention to international during the Nations League competitions, Lautaro Martinez's goal total now matches Maradona's goal tally for Argentina. So that's a significant milestone for Lautaro, and hoping for him that he continues to carry Inter Milan season forward as they push towards getting to the title push towards first place. Now, right now, Milan and Juventus, the next games, I have Inter Milan winning that game, obviously. Milan and Juventus seems to be the matchup of the weekend, if you will. Now, there's a lot of transfer rumors with both teams. Now, the whole debacle at Milan with Rafael Leao and how they handled Paolo Maldini's departure and the whole nine yards. Milan were in position to really take over Italy the same way that Juve did, and they botched it. The same way that they did when they let Pirlo go to Juve. So, again, this rivalry does have some significance there. I'm picking Milan, however, because Juve are just ravaged by injuries. There's rumors about Dusan Vlahovic because they can't really afford to keep that team together. There's not as much money in Italy as there is in some of the other bigger leagues, like the Premier League, for example, and La Liga, that have bigger TV deals and can substantially keep higher salaries, even though with La Liga's salary cap, which, has been the topic of many Reform Hooligans episodes of the past. And because of the impact of that, you're almost wondering how are some of these teams outside the Premier League going to build talent? And I think that's where we're going to see some interesting business tactics here, if you will, because that's where the changes are going to be. But I'm going to pick AC Milan for this game because of the injuries for Juve. Now, Parma and Atalanta. Now, Atalanta's roster is filled with guys that if you are someone that plays Football Manager, or you watch a lot of these European leagues, if you will, or you've watched the Premier League a couple of years ago with the Championship and everything else, guys like Adamola Lookman, um, you know, and just start with Gasperini. So you look at Atalanta's roster; these are all names that are very, very recognizable. Guys like Rui Patricio, Juan Cuadrado, Said Kalasinic, who played at Arsenal, Mario Palasic, Nicola Zaniolo is there, which that's a good place for him to rebound a little bit because he's had a bit of a downside in his career. Charles de Ketelaere, which is one of the biggest mistakes Milan made, was letting him go. Lazar Samardzic, who's someone, if you play Football Manager, he is fire in that game. So all these guys have talent, and the thing is, Atalanta's counterattacking. Well, not really counterattacking, but like kind of they're on the attack all the time because they press so much. They're able to create goals and opportunities, and that's what's carried them. Right now, they're second in the Serie A. I would love to see them win a Serie A at some point, or even get to the later stages of the Champions League, perhaps, because I think that would be more fun to watch than some of the traditional same old teams that we watch all the time, like a Madrid or a Bayern Munich or a PSG. So I think there's something to appreciate there. They should be able to beat Parma, however, and that's a big one. Now the next two games are teams kind of towards mid-table, if you will. Now Genoa and Cagliari, I'm going to have Cagliari in that one. And Torino and Monza, I'm going to have Torino. Monza have really struggled this year. Como and Fiorentina. Now this game is a little bit more focused because Fiorentina are in third this year in Serie A. So it's a very weird kind of shift, if you will, because Juve, AC Milan are kind of in the downward as well as Roma and Lazio. But then you have Fiorentina and Atalanta at the top of the table, as well as the team I'm going to mention next. And because of David De Gea, now David De Gea being cut from Manchester United is one of the most shameful things I've ever seen in professional sports. I compare it to how the Red Sox handled Mookie Betts. I consider it almost the same way that they handled John Lester. John Lester is actually a much better example because Lester was there for two World Series teams and he was an ace, but they didn't appreciate him as an ace. They gave him a low ball offer. And with De Gea, they just kind of like blamed him for the culture. Now, he was the captain and whatnot, but like they blamed him for the culture being as bad as it was. But in theory, he was basically saving goals on his neck, and I think there was no appreciation from the Manchester United side. So Fiorentina, get a golden opportunity to get a goalie and put him right back in the Champions League place. And considering that the game they're playing this weekend is against Como, a team that just came up from promotion. They have some familiar names like Rafael Varane, like Osahan and I mentioned on episode 3 last week. I'm going to Fiorentina winning this match. There are like a couple draws, I guess you can say. I guess Genoa and Cagliari, I guess I'll have a draw. And then Lazio and Bologna, I'm going to have a draw. But otherwise, this next one, I also have a draw. So Como over Fiorentina. And then Napoli and Roma. Now, both of these teams have gone through a massive change since the last time I've discussed them both in length. So Napoli won the Serie A title 2 years ago. Last year, they had a really bad downward spiral. They send Victor Osimhen to Turkey, and then all of a sudden, Antonio Conte comes in. They get Romelu Lukaku to replace Victor Osimhen, and all of a sudden, they're back at first place in Serie A. And it seems like every time Antonio Conte takes over somewhere, it's like there's always like the sudden burst of excitement and energy and creativity and everything else. But then by year 2, year 3, it starts to fizzle out because it's almost like the guys are getting sick of him playing for him. It's like a weird fatigue. Mourinho's got the same vibes. So Conte and Mourinho are very, very similar in that regard. And for Roma, considering that since Mourinho's been fired, it's been kind of a roller coaster because they had Daniel De Rossi, they fired Daniel De Rossi, and then they have that other dude, I forget his name, but they fired him too, Juric, I think his name was Juric, and now they're bringing in Claudio Ranieri, who was their manager during the 2008 to 2012 stretch, and he's going to be kind of a key factor here throughout the rest of the season, I would presume. He could be a long-term fix, maybe not, but he was retired. Now, Ranieri is most famous for his time at Leicester City, where he won the Premier League with a team that just got promoted. Guys like Rai Mahrez and N'Golo Kante and Danny Drinkwater and Jamie Vardy. Those were the faces of that team, and they won a Premier League title going away. So that's basically what his claim to fame is. I think for Roma, they're going to tie. I think the energy of having Ranieri is gonna reign true here. Napoli have some other, I think it's just the energy there is to match. So those are the Serie A picks, and next up is going to be La Liga.